Houston head coach Kelvin Sampson to the dais. Coach, if you could get us started with some general comments about your team.
Well, just how bored are you guys? I mean, you guys look like you're bored out of your skulls. You're all looking at your monitors or your phones. You don't even know I'm up here, do you? Nor do you care. Let's be for real. I got a few more looking. What did you say, Du?
General comments about your team.
I don't think I'm any different than any other coach this time of year. Just anxious to play some scrimmages, and so you can evaluate your veteran guys' progress and get an eye on your young guys and see if they're picking things up, and see if you can't get them some confidence and get them heading in the right direction. But practices this time of year is just making sure you can go 5-on-5, making sure you got enough to practice.
Okay, if you've got a question, raise your hand. We'll get a microphone to you. We've got one here. Actually, we've got two on the back row in the middle, Coach.
Coach Chris Gardner, Houston Roundball Review. Coach, what is the plan for Terrence Arsenault coming back from his injury in terms of minutes on the court?
Yeah, we got to watch that. Where are you at, Chris? Oh, okay. I see your shiny head now. It's kind of like the North Star. Yeah, we got to watch that. ACLs are, it wasn't that long ago, and that was a 12-month recovery. They'll clear them quicker now, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're ready to play in a game or go a full 2-hour practice or do conditioning. Terrence is making good progress, but he's not 100%. But we're having to watch that.
Okay, we've got another one in the middle on the back row, Coach.
Chris Baldwin from Paper City, Houston. Kelvin, Tony Bennett's the latest, top coach to retire. What is it that's kept you going and allowed you to adapt, to this new era?
Well, I think all coaches have to evolve. The younger coaches that came in this generation, it's not new to them. I mean, they're not evolving from anything. They're born into it. But for me, the guy that probably influenced me the most my first couple years as a head coach in the Pac-10 was Ralph Miller. If you're a young journalist, you probably never heard of him. He's been gone a long time, but he's one of the great coaches and teachers and builders of programs that our game has ever known. He really influenced me in a positive way, and I had a chance to tell him that too. But it was 87, 88, 89. Lute Olson, the great Lute Olson was at Arizona, and Mike Montgomery, George Raveling. Lots happened since then, a lot of years, and now, I see all the young coaches in the Big 12, but these guys are much better coaches today than I was. I don't know about so many other guys, but certainly much better than I was. They're better equipped. They have better backgrounds. They have better experience. My best teacher was mistakes, and I made enough for everybody. But I just think being able to evolve, change, realizing, I think when you live your life from a foundation of humility, that means that what you do is not always right, that there might be a better way, and just being humble about those things. The way that I used to do it probably wouldn't work today, and I had to have enough humility to understand that the game is way bigger than I am, and when my time is up and I walk away. The game's not going to miss me, but that's part of getting over yourself. But the game will miss certain guys, but it's certainly not going to miss me. So this game's given me far more than I could ever give it. I enjoy teaching, I enjoy coaching, I enjoy mentoring, I enjoy trying to make a difference in our kids' lives. I enjoy that. I refuse to let NIL or transfer portal penetrate my joy. I keep my joy. I still love doing that. I don't spend my time worrying about NIL. I'm not thinking about it. We deal with it, obviously. I think guys recruit other coaches, players, probably more than their own sometime. We're a living example of that. But all our kids came back, and I appreciate that. But our staff and our culture and our program have a lot to do with that. So the NIL stuff is what it is. It is what it is. But my job has not changed because I will not let it change.
More questions for Coach Sampson? We'll be on the left side here, Coach, in the second row.
Ben Hook, University Daily, Kansas. Coach, a lot of coaches today who are newcoming have talked about the physicality of the Big 12. What do you think those coaches and teams can learn from how you guys immediately sort of adapted to the physicality of the Big 12 coming in last year?
I have no idea. I have no idea what they can learn. I'm not them. You'd have to ask them that.
We're still on the left side here on the third row. Gary Parrish.
Hey, Kelvin. Gary Parrish, CBS Sports.
Hey, Gary.
Hey, you were in this league in the mid-'90s. 30 years later, you're in the league. It was always strong, has always been, but there's an argument to be made. It's now stronger than ever with 5 teams in the top 10 of the preseason AP poll. What have you seen when you look at this conference as it's evolved over the decades?
You know, I don't know that it's much different in the top. You know, when Roy was at Kansas, Coach Sutton was at Oklahoma State, Rick was at Texas, and Oklahoma. We were all in the Final Four year apart. Eddie, I think Kansas, the year we went in 2002, Kansas went the same year. The next year it was Texas. I think the year before, I might be wrong, but I think the first one to go was Coach Sutton and the Cowboys. I think they were in. So we were all playing each other then. Those were tough games. Norm Stewart. I don't know if a lot of these young coaches know what a great program Missouri had. I still have nightmares about the old Hearn Center. That place was a tough place to play, man. Coach Stewart was one of the great coaches this conference has ever had. And then Quinn after him. I remember we beat them one year to go to the Final Four. Coach Knight at Texas Tech. I remember the first year they had that beautiful new, that beautiful arena they have. So the league was always tough, but you know there's a need for everybody to compare. You know, is it better now than it was then? The top probably about the same, both top. There were some teams in the league then that you could beat because they were rebuilding, and they didn't have the resources we have now. Our league should be better now than it was then. That was in, and this, not that you can age a guy that's got white hair, but I was in the Big 8. What is he still doing coaching? But I coached in the whole Big 8. There was just 8 of us. And then when the 4 Texas schools came in, we all didn't have a level playing field. You know, there's some programs were better funded, better supported. Their fan bases were great. Some were not. Now, that's the difference. The fan bases, the arenas, the atmospheres, I remember going to Media Day in 1988 at the LAX Marriott. It didn't look like this. You know, look how media days have changed. Look how many people's here now. You know, I remember they would put us at a table. Of course, nobody ever came to our table. They always went to Lute's table or Jim Herrick's table. But the game has changed. Of course the league has changed. The league should be better. Everything about college basketball is better today. You know, for the traditionalist, it will never be the same. We didn't have NIL back then. You know, there was no transfer portal. I can imagine some of those old coaches are rolling in their grave if they told them that kids not only can transfer with no penalty, they can transfer inside the league. That they would go crazy. But, you know, what's the new rule? Okay, let's go. Let's adapt and move on. That's kind of the way you have to look at it now. But it's been fun to watch coming back into the Big 12, going to the different arenas and seeing the improvements and how great the fan bases are. But I remember going to Old Bramlage. That place was loud back then, too. You know, people say, well, what's the difference in Allen Fieldhouse? Nothing. It hasn't changed. we couldn't beat them in the 90s, 2000s. We can't beat them today. They still have a crazy fan base. We played at Texas last year. Everybody's got great fan bases. There's just some better than others.
Our last question is here in the middle on about the fourth row back.
Jay Drew from the Deseret News in Salt Lake City. Kelvin, if new BYU coach Kevin Young, who's coming out of the NBA as an assistant, approached you for advice because you've done the same thing, although you coached obviously in college before, what would you tell him to be ready for?
Just coach his team. Last year, that was my narrative. I never, ever bought into coaching in the Big 12. We had lost 4 starters from the year before. So I was more interested and concerned about replacing the 4 starters. But I've always had, I don't know if it's unique, but I've always had the ability to focus what's in front of me. I think our first game last year was West Virginia at home. We got ready for West Virginia at home. Whoever was next. My narrative was not the Big 12. My narrative was coaching my team. So that's the only advice I'd give anybody.
Hey, Coach, thank you very much.